You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 349 of the Centralized Favorite podcast. Jeremiah Morrell, joined by executive video producer, audio engineer, and Facebook hacker, Zach Burcham.
I just defeated the Zuck, but I didn't hack him.
You sideswiped him.
Sideswiped him, yeah. He tried to sideswipe me first.
Our big guest today is a guy that's been dodging my interview requests for like 5 years. It's Rex Bell, who I read about this big news in the Newcastle, Henry County Courier-Times that you're retiring after 50 years as a general contractor, and you retired from politics a few years back before that. So I said, well, we got to celebrate this, Rex. You got to come on. And in a weak moment, you said yes.
I was holding out for to be on show number 350.
350.
That's what I was hoping for.
The hell with this. Well, you're coming back next week too, Rex. We don't have it fully figured out, but we'll talk. You can come back next week. The co-host chair is empty. You can have it next week if you need to. So tonight we're going to talk about Rex's time as a contractor, get some stories out of him, talk about some politics. Maybe he met some people along the way. If we run out of steam there, we've got some other stories on deck that we'll get through if we have to. But we promise to get Rex home before his bedtime. This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you, other times we'll make you laugh, but hopefully you always learn something new. Mr. Zach, what did we learn in Patreon?
We learned that Dear Leader needs to stop complaining.
We really ragged on Dear Leader a lot. For a guy that gives us a podcast for almost nothing.
Yeah.
We pretty well blasted the man.
He's given VIP treatment, and all he does is complain.
Yep. He should have been working harder.
Yeah.
If he was working, we wouldn't have had to complain about him. We learned about Rex's one and only experience with the Indy 500. If you want to hear about it, join Patreon.
Yeah.
At any level, and you'll get it. You also get the show notes, links to stories, things we're doing, and if you sign up through the Patreon website, it automatically emails you the night something happens. You get that Patreon audio file sent directly to you. $50 or more a month in the Patreon, and you get your name, your business repped at the top of the episode. Jonathan Phillips, Andy Moore, Buick GMC, Anthony Meyer of A Different Breed Trucking, and Sports Corner and Varsity Outfitters here in Newcastle. The embroiderer of all embroiderers. They've been doing all my custom stuff, Rex. I walked into work this morning wearing my new commercial metals polo shirt that I had them do. I had some Cutter and Buck shirts that I had, and I said, well, I can get the sweet CMC logo on this. I was tired of paying $80 or $90 through a company store to get a shirt that I didn't like. So I'm like, I'll just get one I like and put it on there. And one of my coworkers was like, where'd you get that? And I said, I made it. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, I literally had it made. And she's like, that's amazing. I was like, yeah, they did a great job. So super happy about that.
I think you're a trendsetter too, because you've been making work shirts and podcast shirts out of PFG shirts. And I went and saw Dear Leader at his day job, and his day job, a bunch of them were wearing branded PFGs for their work attire.
I was sitting there at the track, and somebody is like, do you guys sell those? I'm like, no, these are just for me. And he's like, those are like expensive. I'm like, well, I mean, if you know the guys at Varsity, they'll hook you up. So yeah, I was excited about it, but take anything you like, right? Any shirt you have, Rex doesn't need any more Belb contracting swag at this point.
No.
But you find a shirt that you like, and then they hook you up. So I was happy about it. And listen, I'm sure I'm scratching the surface, and I'm turning into doing a commercial for them now at this point. But I found one thing that I like there, and they could do, but they do all the custom and team stuff. So really, really impressive. Anyway, enough of that. Rex, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
As you're heading out the door, you've been giving hints about this retirement for a while, because on every time I open Facebook up, you're selling more tools.
Yes.
I think you've been selling every time you walked into Menards, you must have bought yourself a nail gun.
I had a lot of nail guns. Yes. The wife says, "How many nail guns does one man need?" I had 5 miter saws. She thought that was too many.
It was excessive.
Well, you can never have too many nail guns. You can never have too many miter saws, I always thought. So every time I saw, and they kept coming out with better ones, nicer ones, newer ones.
But you need the old one as a fallback.
I've still got the first miter saw I ever had is Miller Falls, a hand. It's just a hand saw. I bought it off of Jim Cook when I worked at Southside Lumber, gave him $50 for it. It's still out there in my shop.
It's still working.
It's still
When
working.
is the last time it was used to build something?
A couple years ago, I took it on a job somewhere where I didn't want to drag out a cord. I had just one cut to make, so I took it out for that.
So it had a purpose.
It had a purpose.
And the year wasn't 19 something. It was in the 2000s.
It was in 2000. I would say probably 2021.
Well, Susan was hassling you for that.
Oh,
She
yeah.
was just picking on you.
There was
then.
no season, no reason to.
Yeah. So 50 years of bell contracting, that means 1974?
Yes, that's when it started.
The peak
When
of,
I
you couldn't even buy
started.
gasoline in 1974. You had to get in line for it. And you said, I'm going to sign up for a life of going out and building houses
Traveling.
and traveling.
Yeah.
How's that happen?
Well, I started in carpentry, which I wasn't from working for myself. I started working for Dawson Pope out of Moreland. Came home from IU. I'd been down there for a semester, spent everything I made that summer and borrowed $300 off mom and dad. I think IU was $1,700 a year then. It was, but I figured by the time I graduated, it'd be 8 years and I'd be so far in debt I wouldn't make it. So I was just hanging around, and Uncle Woody Bowman was remodeling his office. And he asked if anybody was looking for work, and Mom volunteered me, so I went to work for Dawson Pope, and that's kind of how I picked it up and floated around for 2 or 3 different carpenters for, I guess, 4 years, and then I went out on my own.
So Mom told you that
Yes.
she was in between semesters. You're gonna go start working.
If you're not going to school, go to work. So that was basically it.
So you were a carpenter first, and then that led into your business was essentially, or is, home building, home remodeling, interiors, and then you'd get into bigger stuff on ladders later.
Light commercial. We did some light commercial, but mostly residential work for 50 years. So we started building homes. 1989, I think, was our first home. We did a lot of remodeling. We'd done room additions. Never built a total home until some guy down by Connorsville, Harrisburg was the name of the town. And we drove down there and built the house, put 6,000 miles on my truck building that house. So that's when I decided I was going to stay closer to home.
You're going to get a little more efficient in the locations?
Yes. So when we got a little more accepted and in demand a little more, we were able to pick and choose. And that was something we had to, like the people we were working for, and it had to be close to Hagerstown. We worked in Wayne County and Henry County most of the time, as close as we could get.
So tell me how many people worked at Bell and a lot of family members.
At one time we had up to 8 employees. 3 or 4 was more manageable for me. I got to do the more hammering nails that way. I enjoyed that more than the paperwork it took for 8 people. Of course, Ross, my brother, was with me for 40 some years. Susan.
Mom made him go to work too.
Yes, she made him go to work. But he came in before he went to the service. He started working for me a little bit, and then when he came back from the service, he started working and was with me for 40 years. Poor Susan was the bookkeeper for all of it, tax wise. I did my own billing, but she did the tax work that we needed. So
you're not a big fan of paperwork.
No, I dislike paperwork.
Any interactions with the building commissioners or any of that stuff along the way?
We had a lot of interaction with a lot of building commissioners, but like I said, I've been in business 50 years, and we went through a lot of building commissioners that didn't last. We outlasted them, so we stayed in there, hung in there, and as a matter of fact, the Libertarians Party in Wayne County started because of the building commission over there. That's what
that was the trigger.
Yes, that was the trigger.
So in 1974 or 1981, when you decide 89, when you decide you're going to start building houses, did you need a set of drawings to work from that you'd have to submit and get approval, or could you just say, "Hey, we're going to do this on time and materials and wing it, and it's okay"? How's that part of the business changed?
When I started in business, there was the building inspector in Wayne County was one guy. I think the budget was $24,000 a year for the building department. He came around as long as nobody was doing anything, really grievous. Pretty much it was left between the homeowner and the contractor. But as it grew and grew, it got up to, I think, in 91, was when they hired a woman from Cincinnati and increased the budget of the department to $300,000. And it got to be she was hard on everybody. And we had a meeting. She got fired. So it's mellowed out from what it was back then, but we still.
Do you ever have a house fall in or anything?
No, we've not had anything collapse, and nobody's been killed on one of our jobs in 50 years. So
maybe they could have saved themselves a few $100,000
yes.
in oversight.
But it was, it's been a pretty good life. I mean, there's been a few fights with inspectors that I've enjoyed, and some of them we haven't. But for the most part, it's been pretty good.
So you brought with you your original hammer. You said you've been swinging a hammer. Hold that up for the camera. You're on camera, Rex. I don't want to alarm you, but it's full HD. That is your original hammer you built all these houses with.
Yes, that's a S-Swing 20 ounce. And I bought that when I worked at Southside Lumber in Newcastle. That was before I started business. So I've had that hammer for over 50 years.
Now, it looks pretty shiny for being 50 years old.
Yeah. It hangs in my hammer holder.
I'm going to say it's probably shiny because it's actually being used as opposed to going off to the side.
It's been lost once. I lost it under a house where there was about this much crawl space.
He's showing about 8 inches there, Your Honor.
And I couldn't make it. I wouldn't go back under, and Ross crawled under there and retrieved it.
And he saved it for you.
Otherwise, I would have probably lost it.
Does it have all its original parts?
No, I've replaced the head 3 times and the handle twice. So, but it's
the original hammer.
It's like one of those vintage Ferraris. It's worth $75 million. Like, how much of it's original? We don't talk about that. It's the steering wheel. That's all it's left.
It's in spirit. It's the original hammer.
Yeah. It's original. It's the leather handle. It's come apart a couple times, and I super glued it back together. There's a nick here where I got it into an electric wire that was hot, and it burned a hole in it. Otherwise,
how did you do with the electrical wire? You didn't. I know we had one major medical issue, but it didn't stop your heart when you got the electrical wire. No, it didn't stop. That
one didn't stop me. It scared me to death, but it didn't stop me. No, I've had a couple of major issues. I've fallen, had a walkboard collapse at one time and busted up my shoulder, but I've still got 10 fingers, and I don't think anything. I've never had a really bad situation at work where I got hurt really bad.
So 50 years, same family, same customer base? I'd imagine you've done houses for fathers and sons, and
Yeah, we've worked 3 generations. There's one family over in Hagerstown, and we've built, I think, houses for 4 members of that family. And down in Cambridge, the same way, 2 houses, 2 businesses. We just start working with the family, and it works out pretty good that way.
now
Somebody's in the chat.
Judge Bell has some oversight here.
Somebody says you almost cut off your ear.
And she says you almost cut off your ear once. Was that a work-related incident?
That was a horrible accident. But
was the hammer involved?
No, it was a trash can.
You were digging for your hammer down in the trash can, trying to save it again.
I thought I was pushing instead of pulling. I don't know what happened. I fell down and got a little nick in my ear. But it wasn't as bad as, well, it was just hanging by a thread, they said. But
so in my mind, a couple of the famous locations that you've been involved in the remodeling of or the construction of, the Number 9 Grill down in Cambridge City was a big one. When we were working on the governor's race together, you were in the middle of doing that facility, which is an awesome. I guess maybe you just wrapped that up and you're working on the antique shop next door. I guess
we work on the antique shop.
Just a little bit to the east of it, I guess, of the Number 9. And then Welliver's / Willie and Reds. I think you've been involved in that thing. How many times have you redone Willie and Reds and Welliver's?
Several. It was when it was Welliver's we haven't done much for Willie and Reds, but when it was Welliver's, we were there for 2.5 years, I think, when he bought the dime store next door, Reniker's, and we worked over there. That's where we lowered the basement 16 inches and poured a 4-inch floor. So effectively the floor was lowered a foot, but we could work over there all week. And then when we cut through to the restaurant part, we could only work there Monday, Tuesday, and half a day on Wednesday because he was open Thursday and Friday, Saturday and Sunday.
So when you're hand digging a basement, if it's underneath the building already, how do you do that?
We had picks and shovels and 5-gallon buckets, and we tried to figure out a way to put a elevator in, and it was so far in there we couldn't do it. So we hired a bunch of kids and carried up 5-gallon buckets.
Just a nickel a bucket?
We were paying them by the hour. Willie was paying them.
Yeah.
I think 31 or 32 dump truck loads we hauled out of
5-gallon buckets at a time.
5-gallon buckets. Some of the kids come back the next day and they would work all the way through. Some of them didn't make it to lunch. They didn't come back.
I'm not sure I would have made it on belly crawl duty with 5-gallon buckets, Rex.
No.
I love you, but I don't know if that was work for me.
It was tough convincing them. It's easier to carry 2 5-gallon buckets than it is 1, because 1 pulls you to the side. So we tried to convince them to carry 2, but some of them balked on us when we did that.
So I'm familiar with Willie and Reds. So was that what is now the basement dining area there?
Yes, over.
Gosh, guys, that's insanity.
To the west side, that was a dime store, Reniker's, and there was dining above and dining below.
For people who aren't familiar with it, it's a smorgasbord restaurant. It's legendary. It's now called Reds, but it was called, or Willie and Reds, it was called Welliver's back in the day. And I bet now, I don't know how many hundreds of people you could seat in that place. It's enormous. And the buffet is actually like, the salad bar is as big as a normal buffet. And then it's got hot food, and then there's shrimp and all the kinds. And it's got, it's a big place, but I can only imagine. And this is in the middle of Hagerstown, like the middle of town.
There was, when Guy Welliver started it, I think sometime late 40s, and it kept growing and growing and growing. At the time, there weren't a lot of fancy restaurants around. People would drive for miles to come to Welliver's. Now You drive Muncie, Newcastle, anywhere, any major thoroughfare, it's got a restaurant.
There's a Red
corner.
Lobster on every corner.
But back then, it was and people from all over the world had heard of Welliver's Smorgasbord and Perfect Circle Piston Rings. Was Hagerstown's claim to fame, So it was a good feeling to work on something that had been around that long. And we put the curved roof on the front. He had an architect come in and draw the blueprint up for just a straight wall. And I said, we need to extend this curved roof. And he said, no, we couldn't afford that. He'd spent thousands of dollars 30 years ago when they did the first one. I said, well, let me figure it up. So we figured it up, and it was less than a third of what he'd paid
the first time
around. He went, So somebody took him the first time, but he was a lot of fun to work for.
So what other projects around the buildings or neat restorations were you able to do over the years?
Well, we did that. We did the number 9 houses. Some houses we're pretty proud of, that we've done. We've worked on some houses that are close to 200 years old. Now, there's always a lot of...
One of the fun things in watching you on Facebook is that contractors leave each other notes when you had something opened up. When how often do you open something up and find either your old beer cans or a note that you or somebody else had put there back in the day?
We've done that several times. I've got a 2x6 in my shop from Wally and Sarah Picorni's house. We built that in 93, I think, and somebody remodeled, and they cut out this section of 2x6 that I'd signed in 1993 and sent it back to me. We're working on a building now.
Did you just pick up the phone and bitch and say, why didn't I get the work this time?
It was a homeowner doing their own.
Yeah.
We're working on a job now, or I am. I'm down to just me finishing up down at Hagerstown or down at Cambridge City. The guy signed it that owned the building, did the work in 1976. That was his 50th anniversary in business, the Miller Dairy. And we're remodeling it on my 50th anniversary. So I thought, well, this is a sign.
The symmetry's perfect.
Yeah. This is a good time to quit.
So you had set this goal for yourself that you wanted to make it 50 years. You've talked about this for a long time.
Yeah.
Once you got to 50, did you say, oh, thank God? Or did you say, I got new knees. I could go another 5 or 6 years?
No, I think I'm going to wind down. I'll still do little stuff, but nothing that involves paperwork or climbing. I'm going to stick to that, I think.
You've kept at least one set of enough tools to get yourself through anything you or the kids or the grandkids say that they
around
need to
the
do.
Shop, or if somebody needs a small job done, I can do that. I've still got 3 miter saws. I'm going to sell one of them when this job down here is done. My portable that I take out on the job, and then I've got a big one I'll keep in the shop, and a big slide miter, and my original miter. I'm going to keep that.
There was a story a few years ago. You had a trailer that disappeared on a site too.
Yeah.
One of your big contractor trailers. Remind me of how that one worked out.
It was up at Fountain City. We were building a house up there, just a little bit north, and somebody tried to break into it and couldn't get in, so they just stole the trailer.
It had your name on the side of it.
It had our name on the side of it.
It wasn't well
billboard,
but it had a 2 5/16 hitch, and I got a feeling whoever stole it had an 1 7/8 ball, and I had a tire wheel chained to the axle to keep somebody from stealing it. Well, it didn't slow them down, but it made them easy to track because you could trace that. We traced it for several miles before we lost it. But at any rate, they went over a old railroad track crossing, I think, and the trailer came unhooked and rolled down into a cornfield. And we had offered a reward on Facebook, and some guy called and said, I think I know where it is. And he went up there, and so we found it that way. And of course, the police said, boy, this is the quickest we ever solved anything. I said, you didn't solve anything. I gave the guy up here $500 to find this trailer. And he was just driving, go to work. So,
well, it was like better than a scratch-off ticket at Speedway.
Yeah.
He's just, and it says right there on the side of it, Bell Contracting.
He was tickled to death, and I was tickled to death. So
the farmer who lost his corn, not so much.
No, well, there was nothing planted in the field yet, so we.
Perfect timing.
Yep.
So was the trailer okay?
The jack was bent. We had to replace that. Which
how were the wheels that were chained?
Well, that was my brother's. Ross, I'd stolen that out of his pickup truck. That was his spare.
So Ross,
and it was pretty well beat up by the time that we got there.
Ross's spare was. You owed him a spare.
Yep.
They were at $40. So it's $540, really.
$540. But we, when they did find the guys that stole it, and the prosecutor sent me a letter and asked me if I wanted anything. I said, yeah, I'd like to have my reward money back, my deductible for the insurance. I don't know, 20 hours I spent out buying tools and gathering back up. And I'd like to have a letter of an apology from the guy that stole it. Well, I didn't get any of it.
You're still waiting.
I'm still waiting. I still have hope that that's going to happen. So it hadn't happened yet.
It's been a couple of years, but maybe next week. We'll just be hopeful.
I'm waiting. I just check the mail every day.
So we talked about it. Your run-ins with with compliance with local government officials got you to the point where you said, you felt compelled to get involved in local politics.
Yes.
So my history with Rex is that he tricked me into politics. By 2016, he asked me to be his treasurer for a run for campaign for governor. And then accidentally I became campaign manager by default because it was the pay was not great for the staff. And
it was even worse when you were doing two jobs.
It was even worse when I was doing both the jobs. And then I was watching the World Series, and Rex really interrupted that one night in November too. It got very complicated, but at least the Cubs won. All that being said, Rex and I have a history that goes back a long way in politics. But as I remember, you talked about watching maybe the 96 or 2000 C-SPAN coverage of
2000.
The 2000 national. This is the kind of time you had.
Yeah.
You're watching C-SPAN, watching a guy running for president, and that got you into politics. Is that accurate?
Yes. Harry Brown. He was the nominee in 2000. Given the speech, and I was floored. I said, this guy was talking to me, this is what I believe. As soon as everybody hears this, everybody want to be a libertarian. There's no other way around it. And that's what I thought would happen.
You got converted immediately, and so everybody else will too.
Yeah, but that didn't work that way. I come to find out, I had a buddy that said, it's only welfare if somebody else is getting it. And that is the mindset that the general public has. A lot of people think government's too big, but not the part I use of it. It's what everybody else uses is too big.
So in 2000, you saw Harry Brown, and then you said, I want to start. You somehow got involved with the Libertarians, maybe Brad Kloppenstein. Another Boss Hog alum.
Brad Kloppenstein, Sam Goldstein, Mark Rutherford, Cindy Kirkpatrick. That crew was all together over there. I got involved with them in Indianapolis, and once I got involved over there, then we started the Wayne Wayne County chapter, and went on for 20 years, pretty close to it.
So you, what office did you run for first? Like a county council seat, county commissioner?
Council was my first attempt. I ran for county council, county commissioner, state rep,
state senate,
state senate, and then
Congress.
I ran for Congress and I ran for governor.
Still got time to run for president. I'm telling you, you almost ticked all the boxes. So how did the first cycle or two before I was around in the picture, running for that county council seat in the county commissioner's race? How did it go? Did you find yourself being well received? Did you go talking to a bunch of people? How did you had that fresh fire and excitement that nobody's jaded yet when they run the first time? And
it was a two-way race. There was I think there were 6 Democrats in Wayne County. 6 total.
All of them.
Yes. So there was a two-way race. We were getting 30%, 33%, 35%, feeling good about it. We were well received in Wayne County. There was a lot of turmoil. People were upset about, especially what I could see, as far as what was going on in the building department. Probably, we got a lot of people that just didn't want to vote for the Republicans, so they voted for us, where they agreed with
any other option.
Yes.
So that had some moderate success, and then you said, okay, you jumped in and you said you wanted to run for state representative.
Yeah, we ran for state representative 3 times.
And in one of those races was a 3-way race. I think it was Representative Tom Saunders, another Boss Hog alum, David Sadler, I believe, who has run for city judge here in Newcastle, and I think he was city judge probably at the time, an attorney in town, and then you for state rep. And you had a killer turnout for a libertarian third-party candidate.
We got over 20% in a 3-way race. That's the first time that it happened. Oh gosh, I don't know, in 60 years, I believe. I forget what the total was on it. How far back it had been, but it had been a long time.
It was back to like the early 1900s.
Yes.
For a third party candidate to have that kind of number in a state legislative race in Indiana. And then you won precincts as well. That was kind of a big deal at the time.
At the time, one race I won, I think 9 precincts, and come in second, and a couple more, and by 1 or 2 votes. We were taken off, and I was still feeling enthused about it and feeling pretty good about it.
And then the other big highlight, and this is after I started I was around. I'm taking 0 credit for this because we'll talk about one of the reasons why I think you had so much success and you resonated. But you ran for Congress, and that was obviously a 6th congressional district in Indiana. I think you were running against Luke Messer. Maybe it was an open seat. Yep. And that was 19 counties. It was just massive, like a quarter of the state of Indiana is in this congressional district.
Almost to the Ohio River. It seemed like, we were.
It was huge.
Yeah.
But you won precincts in that too.
Yeah.
Which I think you won in Henry County and in Wayne County.
Yeah.
Places you had built houses, you had some name ID. That was totally unheard of to win in a federal office to win precincts.
And we won in Blue River, Moreland, which that was where I was raised, between Millville and Moreland. So, and I had my mom and dad was working the polls up there, so I think that had a lot to do with it.
At the back in that time, if you lived in Blue River Township, we didn't have vote centers yet, so you had to drive to Moreland and you would go vote there in Moreland at the Christian church or at the firehouse or whatever it was. You built a name for yourself by writing, and I don't know what triggered your writing or if you always did it. I know that was a little bit of what you went to college for, but you would have these opinion pieces that would appear in the Newcastle paper, maybe the Wayne County, the Western Wayne News, and some others that you had some success with. Tell me about your column.
Well, that was when I the first column I wrote, the first letter to the editor, of course, was when I was still in junior high, I guess. But the main one started with the building inspector. I wrote a letter about the building inspector and some of the problems we were having, and all the contractors in the county were upset with her. So that came in, and then the response I got to that inspired me to, I said, well, I'll write some more letters about politics and the overreach of government. So the response I got from them inspired me to keep going, because I got a lot of letters, and I've still got some of them at home. I kept people responded and said, yeah, I agree with you. Speak out more, say what, this is what I've been feeling. I said, well, I wish that's what you were voting. A lot of people feel that way, but they don't vote that way. So
you did two things with these. You put them all out on the Rex is a blogger. I know he doesn't look like your typical blogger back in the day, but you had the bell curve.
The bell curve.
So if folks go, it's still out there. I don't think you've written anything new out there in about 5 or 6 years. You didn't make it 50 years in writing. But at rexbell.blogspot.com has got all, I think everything you did for the bell curve is out there.
Yeah.
And I know you still will go back and remind people that the national debt was only $7 billion, $1 trillion, or gazillion dollars at the time. And now it's, I don't know, what is it, 40, 50, 75? I don't even know. No, it's an incomprehensible number at this time.
It's about 34 trillion. We're adding about $1 trillion every 100 days.
Well, if the three of us split it, we're only in for 10 each.
Yeah, no problem.
So you had all of these, and then you said, I know what I can do. Is it you made a book?
Yeah. I made a book. I won the Thomas Paine Award at the national, from the National Party. I think in 2010. And so I started gathering up some of these writings that I'd made, wrote some new ones, used some of the old ones, revamped them. I put in the book, I double-spaced a lot of it so that you could change the numbers as it became necessary, as life went on, as years went on. Hopefully we could change some of the numbers down, but mostly we've been changing them up ever since. But Stinky Shorts was the name of the book. So I've had a lot of fun with that. And we sold, I don't know how many we sold. I started out with 500 copies and went through them pretty quick and had some more printed up. I think I'm down to 5 or 6 copies left.
So Stinky Shorts, they're short stories.
Yeah.
Explain the stinky part for those that are not on the inside.
Well, Stinky Wilmot, he was my buddy when I was growing up with Stinky Wilmot, and just stories, lessons I learned from him, interactions that we had together, and tried to connect it to some happening in the government, or some happening local government or national government.
Now, is Stinky still? Does he still have a monument as you pull into
as you go into Millville?
As you pull into Millville, there's a sign.
He was going to be here tonight if he got his chores done.
Well, that's why there's an empty seat over here, yeah. and Stinky didn't. He stood us up again.
Get his chores done in time.
So as you pull into Millville, Indiana, there are 2 signs. One says, "Hey, this is the hometown of Wilbur Wright," and 2, it says, "This is the hometown of Stinky Wilmot."
Yes. That's true.
And nobody knows where Stinky's sign came from. There was no big ceremony. Normally, when these things happen, Stinky get, there would have been a Sagamore of the Wabash and a ribbon cutting and the whole thing. But Stinky's sign went up. It just appeared one day.
It appeared one day out of nowhere, but it's Millville's claim to fame is Wilbur Wright and Stinky Wilmot.
Rex, I don't think Zach knows. He's just over there looking puzzled about what the hell he's talking about.
I'll be honest too. I also pulled up the national debt clock, and it's the one I found has a staggering amount of different figures on it.
What's the current number?
Well, it's gone up quite a bit since we've been talking. It's so there's no point in even discussing the first six figures, because it's rolling up. Like there's $100,000 and then another $100,000. That's how quickly it's real. So below that, because it's going to rack up another million in the time it takes me to read it, 34,781,131,000,000, and it's actually about to go 132 billion and counting, and it goes up real fast. So it's this thing has got like the social Medicare. It's got laid out by like defense.
Every bucket that we're
it's literally, there's got to be 50 different figures on here, even down to like number of union workers. The scariest thing was U.S. retirees, and that number goes down. I'm like, is that like, I don't want to see the number go down, but somehow that number is larger than the U.S. population. So maybe the website's not entirely accurate. I'm not sure how that works, but
well, you got to count your legals and illegals, Rex.
And probably what a lot of people don't realize, 34 trillion, that's, people can't get their mind around
it's
that.
$103,000 per citizen, 266, or actually, let's roll it up. It's $267,000 per taxpayer.
Yeah.
So.
And that is just debt. The unfunded liabilities that the federal government has is over 200 trillion. That's promises that they've made. They don't have that money.
Haven't figured that part out quite yet.
But they know they're going to have to pay it. I don't know if you read the article in the Courier the other night about the Social Security, and they said, well, you're guaranteed the 5/6 of it, no matter what.
Yeah, you're not guaranteed anything for Social Security.
Yeah. Guaranteed from who? I wrote one of the stories that I wrote on the bell curve about Sisyphus, from the Greek gods that had to roll the rock up the mountain and forever, and he'd get almost to the top of the rock and roll back down. I never understood why he didn't just step aside, let it roll down and go on about his business. Well, I don't know what's going to happen when the people that are supposed to pay in 10 years from now say, no, we're not going to do this anymore. Promises have been made. These people are going to say, I didn't make that promise. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm happy to be 72 years old now. I don't have to worry about it. But young guys like you might have to worry about it.
There's a 4 in the number now, Rex. I'm not as young as I was. I'm not sure I'm ever going to claim it.
Yeah,
myself.
We're still far enough off Social Security.
But I think I'm still 25 plus years away from having a shot at it myself.
Yeah.
Unless I get hurt, and then
I think it's more like 27.
If you get lucky.
See, that's the optimism over there. He said, "Oh no, it's not 25, it's 27."
Because I think it is. I think it's up to like 67 in a couple of months.
That's for your full check.
That's one of the ways that they do that.
I think you can take a shorter number at, I don't know, 59
you can take a shorter
60.
number earlier. You can take a bigger number later.
Yeah,
Regardless, I mean this. Yeah, usdebtclock.org. You want to be overwhelmed by numbers, click on that website.
Now, Rex, you and insurance companies always have a lot of fun together. If I remember right, you've been telling people that when they try to sell you long-term care insurance, how old are you for the long-term insurance guy?
94.
You're 94, but
Yep.
you're doing all right. You're still buying green bananas.
I still buy green bananas. I don't start any 2-part stories on television. Stick with 1 part. No, this final expense insurance. And there's guys always named Dan or David, but you can't understand him. He's got a heck of an accent to be named Dan or David. But he's going to sell me final expense insurance. But as soon as they find out I'm 94, they just hang up on you. I don't know why that is.
They're done with you. Now, you notably don't like to participate in a whole lot of government programs.
No.
How did it go when they made you take for health insurance? At some point, it becomes no longer, you can't just go buy your own insurance now.
No.
When you're 70 something. How did that go? Because I would like to see Rex Bell in the government insurance office getting signed up for this against his will. It's a hostage situation.
It is a hostage situation. When I turned 65 and I had to go on Medicare, they said, and I, for 66, I'm not sure of the time. But at any rate, I said, we've always carried our own insurance, a high deductible. I'm just going to stay with that. Not possible. The insurance companies wouldn't even quote us a figure on them. You're locked in. You have to go on government insurance unless you've got the funds not to have any insurance.
Now, did you look into taking a birth certificate like you're a Little League player from the Dominican? Because I think you could have made yourself younger and been Josue Bell and had a shot at it and maybe squeezed another 10 years out.
I try to avoid the government as much as possible, but I'm not going to avoid it to the point of going to jail. So I know they would take care of me if I went to jail, but I avoid them as much as I can, but I don't want to go to jail. I do as much what I have to keep from going to jail.
To keep them off your back.
Yes.
All right. Well, very good. So then let's talk about the final race you had, running for governor. This is where you and I got to spend an incredible amount of time together.
We had a lot of time together, a lot of road trips.
a lot of road trips from Evansville to Porter County to every map dot in between. What was the motivation to say, hey, you wanted to run for governor? It was supposed to be, this is 2016. It was supposed to be Mike Pence and John Gregg and Rex Bell.
Yep.
And how'd it work out?
Mike Pence took off.
He quit. You got in the race, and Mike said, I need to find another gig.
That's and this is on a side note. When Susan won, my wife won the judgeship over at for the Hagerstown Court. When she won, the state did away with town courts. You had to be a
be an attorney.
Yeah, you have to be an attorney or an incumbent. And I said, well, if I win, maybe they'll do away with the governor's position, How well off would we be right now if they had done away with that 8 years ago?
Yep.
Much better off. So that was kind of my motivation. I thought I could win. I still thought, well, I didn't actually think I could win, but I had.
Well, you tell me this now. I got bamboozled.
I was hoping, that we could bring in 10% or so. I would have felt good about that, and I felt like I had something to offer, something to say, and there was. It's a good possibility. There's a good chance to get out and talk to people. When you're running for office.
So we ran all over the state of Indiana. You got to participate in 3 statewide debates.
Yes.
They were televised all over Indiana. I think you had a one-liner to the effect of, I think you made our current governor chuckle when you talked about selling warm beer.
Yeah.
Because it was we had this thing going on about alcohol sales, and in Indiana you could only sell beer if it was cold in a liquor store and warm in a grocery store. But if it was cold outside and the grocery store furnace broke, now they're criminals.
Now there would be criminals. And I said, and I still believe anything that's legal on Saturday should be legal on Sunday. Well, that caught on. A lot of people reported that, and I think that was a
couple of years later, they finally changed the law after you banged the drum.
So
and by the way, the governor was first in line to buy his beer on Sunday. Although he wasn't so excited about the idea when you talked about it down in Evansville at the debate.
Well, they couldn't even get our name right. You don't know if you remember.
I remember.
The cone was knocked over the ball parking place.
So we were. And we rolled in with our what is now my white Tahoe. It was that was the Bell family Tahoe at the time. I think I drove us to Evansville. I think I might have insisted on being your driver for security reasons. And we rolled into the assigned parking space for the Bell campaign. but it was spelled Ball, Ball. So I overcooked the parking just a little bit and knocked the cone over to teach them a lesson.
It was tough. It was one of those things. It was hard to take.
7 letters. They couldn't get a 7-letter like.
It was just the last name. Bell versus Ball.
Yeah.
That was it.
Thought you were from Muncie.
That was the trouble. Yeah, we had the white Tahoe, and then the dark side had the black Tahoes. The Governor Holcomb, he was rolling. So in the middle of this race, Donald Trump wound up becoming the presidential nominee. He picked Mike Pence. So 100 days to go in the election. We're planning on Mike Pence. And all of a sudden, Eric Holcomb, who had been just appointed lieutenant governor, all of a sudden now he becomes the governor nominee. It all happened very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were curveballs all over the place. The one good thing that happened in the race is I did accidentally meet my wife Sarah, and ultimately it led to Judge Bell marrying us, which is a cool deal. So we were on track to our 10-15%. And then you were giving an interview in Richmond on November 2nd, 2016. And what happened?
Well, I had a stroke.
At the Palladium item.
Yes, I was sitting there talking to Rachel. Rachel Shealy was doing the interview, and I got so fuzzy I couldn't figure out what was going on. And before too long, it turned into full blood. On the trip over there, I got a little disoriented, and they told me later they were TIAs. I'd heard of them. That was about as far as it got. And then when I had the full-blown stroke at the Palladium item office, and they whisked me to Reed Memorial. And then from there, in the helicopter, went to Indianapolis. And it was quite I think 10 days I was down over there. For the election, I was in the hospital for the election.
You were in Methodist Hospital on election day.
Yep.
You were with it. I got to the hospital, and you were in a shared room.
Yeah.
And this is where my smart ass got us in trouble or got you an upgrade. I don't know which one it was, but I was being my normal self, and I said two voice notes too high. I said, if John Gregg was laying in this hospital room, Rex, do you think he'd be sitting here in a shared room? And not 20 minutes later, they come rolling in and said, Mr. Bell, you're getting your own room.
When I was running for governor.
Do you know who this man is?
Yeah, but it was a bit, Rex and Zach. It was not intentional. Rex was there.
There is an irony to it. I mean, there is.
But when they found out I was running for governor, and they treated me like a king over there.
If you voted,
when I lost the election, then I was nothing.
They said, hey, do you need the media center? Do you want to hold press conferences from here?
Yep.
Do you need extra, what size catheter do you want? All of the questions were coming in. It was kid gloves. And then the day after the election, it was, Rex, there's the door.
Yeah, get out of here. Here, take this wheelchair. It's got a flat tire, but it'll be all right.
Yeah, it was a heck of a day. Heck of a day. My brother's birthday. I'm sitting there watching the Cubs, and there's Susan calling, and she says, "Hey, I don't know who to call or what's going on, but Rex is in the helicopter going to Methodist. I'm not dealing with this. Figure it out."
No.
Great. Hope Rex is okay. It was quite the evening.
It was quite.
And the media that didn't really care so much cared that day.
Yep.
They were called. Then all of a sudden they had our phone number.
Yep. Yeah, they wouldn't talk to us any other time after that. And I was hoping maybe I'd set a precedent. Maybe everybody that was running for office would have a stroke, but it didn't happen.
Didn't quite work out.
No.
So you made a heck of a recovery. That was 8 years ago. So you were 42 years into Bell contracting at the time, and you wanted to get to 50.
Yep.
And you've been able to do it.
Yep.
Now, Judge Susan put some restrictions in on you.
Yep.
She said no more than 40 feet up on a ladder.
Yep.
And she said you can't yell anymore.
No, I can't yell anyway. But the stroke, it affected my memory and affected my voice. You can tell I used to have this booming voice, sounded like Johnny Cash, but not anymore. So I was recovering from the stroke, but I gave up writing. I couldn't work and write both. I just couldn't keep it all together. It took all my concentration to do the job. So I kind of did that, and I was hoping my knees would hold out till 50 years, but they said no, they're not going to. So I had my knees worked on.
They made it about 48.
Yeah, they made it 48 years. But I'm getting along pretty good with them now. I just can't crawl around too good.
Now, the one side effect is anytime that you've hit yourself with the hammer, now that you're on blood thinners, what happens?
You bleed a lot.
You look like a victim.
Yes.
You look like a victim.
I'm taking down rock panels. My stomach, every place a rock hits me, it makes a bruise. I'm pretty spotted. Look like an ocelot.
Well, we'll let you keep your shirt on for the rest of the interview.
Thank you.
So did you meet any celebrities in your work in any of this?
I met more celebrities when I was
through the politics stuff
than I did through work.
So thinking about the politics side, you met the Free Pony guy. I know you had that. Vermin Supreme. You guys are buddies.
Yep. Got a picture taken with him.
And he was the guy that had the boot on his head, Zach. I don't know if you remember Vermin Supreme. And then after Susan won her election, they tried to recruit her to be the vice president.
Yes.
One time. Can you share that story with us real quick?
Oh, it was out at I think Colorado Springs. We had the convention out there, and what was his name?
Wayne Allen Root.
Wayne Allen Root was trying to get the nomination to run for president, and he asked Susan to be the vice president. Well, she would have no part of it.
You tried to talk her into it.
Oh, I tried to. I was all enthused about it.
You were ready to move to Washington and give up this career and be a a trophy husband.
Yes, I was going to be the first man, instead of the first lady. But she wouldn't have any part of it, and he didn't get the nomination anyway. So it was kind of a moot point. But
it didn't shake out.
Their 15 seconds of fame, for that brief little bit. I was calling home, telling everybody, hey, guess what's happened? It was a big deal.
Zach, if you've tried to get Miss April to run for vice president, what kind of response have you gotten at home?
Oh hell no.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's pretty low Rex got too.
Say, yeah.
You just
I couldn't even get a discussion out of it.
You couldn't even say, "Hey, let's sit down and talk
about this."
My wife would say, "Oh hell no," and then leave, so you couldn't even say anything again.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah,
sounds familiar. So this last weekend, when we were all having fun at the Indy 500, the Libertarians did have their national convention, and a couple of Boss Hog alums wound up with some pretty big positions out there. Mark Rutherford, who I think is still a patron, and former candidate for Secretary of State in Indiana. He was the state chairman back when you came into the party, Rex. He just got elected to be the Libertarian Party national vice chairman. So I don't know why he wants that headache, but Mark is signed up and he's in, and I know he's been working on that for a very long time, trying to have some influence on the national party and try to be the adult in the room. Last year, a fellow named Mike Termott came out here, and his people reached out to the Boss Hog podcast and said, "Hey, Mike wants to be on the show." And I said, "Well, that's fine. Would be happy to have him, but we record in person in Newcastle, Indiana on Thursday nights." And they said, "Okay." And I normally, when I tell a national candidate this, they say, "Well, we're in Virginia or we're in North Carolina. It's not going to work out." And Mike said, "Okay." And I said, "Well, that doesn't happen." So Mike drove out here, and I think he was in Dayton, Ohio, and made a trip of it. And Mike Termott was in the studio, and he was running for president. And so that was pretty impressive. He did not win the national nomination last week, but he did win the vice presidential nomination. So Mike Termott is going to be the if you look on a ballot this year when you're voting for president, vice president, Mike Termott, who was sat right there in the chair you're sitting in, Rex, running for vice president of the United States. It's kind of a big deal. So I wanted to call that one out. And if you had gone to the national convention, Rex, you could have had a job too.
I could have had a job. I could have been the vice president.
Could have. Thank God you didn't go. All right. I'm looking at the clock here. I think we're about at that point, Zach. I've got a couple more little things here, but nothing too crazy. I'm going to wrap up with one story that was in the news today. This guy named GFED, G-F-E-D. He's on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. I think he's this top story in Indy Star. The Indianapolis 500 finished up on Sunday, very late at night. In this guy, his whole shtick is that he stays at an event as long as he can. Final whistle in a basketball game. The end triple zeros at a football game. He starts the stopwatch and he just hangs out and watches folks, and just hangs out, looks around the stadium, sees what he can do, sees what he can get into. So he does the Indianapolis 500. He posts this video Tuesday, and I think it instantly became his most popular video he's ever had. I think it had 7 million views already in 2 days. Staying at the Speedway, and it's a massive facility. He's in the grandstands. He goes down. He tries to see if he can get close. He go see the front stretch. They're taking pictures on the front stretch. He goes back and looks at the infield. Still a bunch of people milling around, stuck in traffic. So then he says, "All right, let me go see if I can get in the pagoda." Walks up to the pagoda. Nobody guarding the door. Presses the elevator button. It works. Finds himself up in the 8th floor in a suite. He finds a little race car simulator. Jumps in the race car simulator. Sits there. Comes back downstairs, and he finds himself next to the media center. Walks over, and he's about 20 feet away from the Indy 500 champion. And then the Indy Star that has no fun at all. They write this big article about it. And apparently the Speedway is now saying, "Oh, we screwed up. We didn't have the security in place we should have had because of this big rain delay." They wound up saying that these people had abandoned their posts, and now it's a big controversy. Guy did just what he does.
I don't think I need to do the rain delay.
People go home.
I mean, in generally, we've experienced this all month. You experienced this. Once the event is over, where I have a hunch about lap 100, especially in that case with the late start, the yellow shirts just start pulling off the entrances, and they're not you could
walk into the event.
You could walk in and watch the checkered flag of the Indianapolis 500 without ever buying a ticket every year. No problems. So yeah, they're just pulling off at that point, and then most people weren't hanging around, so they weren't looking for. It's a huge facility. I was trying to look it up, and it's hard to find the exact statistic, but it's some 250 acres of the infield. Yeah, they just were laid back. I did hear something about some police officers went home early because they were out of hours. I don't know. I saw some that were, and nothing against them. I'm not saying they weren't doing their job. There were a bunch staying along Georgetown, keeping an eye on things moving along. So in groups of 3 or 4. But yeah, that's just the way the track is. Once the event's over, the yellow shirts kind of stand back and just make sure that nobody's hurting themselves.
Just on TikTok alone, this video has 7.3 million views already. So the track is mad about the whole thing. They should be sending him a thank you.
They're mad
because he brought attention to them that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. On this
they're mad because they're going to have to pay yellow shirts to stay longer and do their jobs harder for a longer period of time for future events.
So the same guy then posted. Morgan Riggs says Rex Bell for vice president in 2028. By the way, it's Morgan. That's not a way to have Rex get excited. It's a way he won't come in 2028. The same fellow he then posted a video from week 5 in the NFL. He attended a Colts game. So this is his Indianapolis week of content. He attended a Colts game, and they were looking for him after the game. The NFL had sent out an all points bulletin saying, "Look out for this guy.
They're aware who he is.
Look out for this guy." So he's on video, and he was in the 600 level. He goes down to the main concourse 20-25 minutes in, and you can hear somebody go, "Oh, that's the guy." They walk up to him, and they have filled out a summons, essentially. He's being put in NFL jail, and they give him this sheet of paper with his name on it and said, "Yep, this is you. You need to take this 2.5 hour long course on code of conduct." All he had done is stand he's just waiting on somebody to throw him out. The whole premise is he stands somewhere, and when security tells him to leave,
he doesn't try to hide.
He won't hide. He's in public spaces, and then if there's a gate open and he can go through it, then he'll peek his head through. He'll walk onto a football field at a college stadium. I've done the same thing. I walked onto the field at Indiana University on a day. If I'm rolling through and I got nowhere to be, I'll see where I can get to.
Yeah.
That's you touch the fence and see if it's hot, and if the gate's not closed, the gate's not closed.
I used to have a teacher in Hagerstown, and he said, roll up a piece of paper, walk fast, and hit your leg with it. Act like you're thinking about something. People will step back and let you go.
Yeah.
He said he didn't want to be bothered.
I joke at Indy, if you're wearing black slacks and a polo and have a clipboard and a headset, you throw on you and walk importantly, you'll get about
you go anywhere you want to go.
Yeah, you get about a lot of people, especially if you're smart enough to get you a Penske polo, you're probably going to go anywhere. Yeah, if he's not actively trying to hide, because if you actively wanted to, you'd spend the night at IMS. And I'm not encouraging it. So, Doug, if you hear this, don't ban me from the track. But it's a huge facility. There's trees. There's a golf course. You could just go somewhere out of the way and
you
chill.
could swim in through the creek.
Yeah. Well, they got fencing over that, but it doesn't go to the ground level. You want to, you could. But if he's just loitering around, then he was probably gone at the time. But from listening to the Hinch Secret Service were on property at some point because Mike Pence was there. So I would think that if the Colts knew that he was there at their game, or the NFL did, and an entire floor of the pagoda apparently is law enforcement, from what I heard on another podcast, including Homeland Security, how did they were not aware of him being there and that's his shtick?
So the guy's there. He at Lucas Oil. This is week 5. He essentially got told, you have to take this code of conduct thing, and I think he had to pay I want to say it was either $50 or $250 for this class. I think it was $250. Yeah, for hanging out. And he's like, so he takes it, and it's all a part of the video he puts out. He's like, unruly behavior, cussing, none of this stuff he had done. They just made him pay for this course to be able to attend any. So he essentially had a ban for any NFL game. He couldn't go to any other game anywhere until he had paid off and taken his online restitution course. It's like a traffic ticket trying to buy your way back out of it.
Wow.
So, and he's like, I have 3 or 4 NFL teams in my DMs trying to contact me to do stuff with them right now. But now I got the NFL. And he said, it's not the Colts. It wasn't the Colts that did it. It was the NFL. He said at every single stadium they had alerted. It was like he was at the post office with his picture up on as the most wanted. And whatever stadium he showed up at, he was going to get this letter. So it just happened that he was in Indianapolis in week 5 and they caught him.
He needs the Groucho Marx nose and the mustache and the glasses he put on.
Exactly.
He's just pointing out what everybody already knows, and that is the minute an event is over, security becomes much more lax very quickly. And so if he's not doing anything, he's not actively hiding, like, gosh, look, whatever. But go to things embarrassing just because you could secure the pagoda with 4 people. 4 people could have done it. If you've got the media center being watched already, you just need 1 person at the bottom, 1 person at the front door, back door, and then at each side for the access off the F1 garages. So it wouldn't be that hard.
So anyway, this was burning news in Indianapolis, but the Indy Star wanted to have no fun. They're all killjoys and they're reporting about it like it's news. That's the whole thing. When you go out there, sneak in motorsports. You push the limits. So that, to me, it's just that you didn't violate anything.
So honestly, which is more disturbing? He got into the pagoda hours after an event on a weird day where weather, which I may have played some part a little bit, or the fact that a couple years ago when they were cleaning up one of the lots on Tuesday or Wednesday, they found a dead body in one of the tents and nobody knew this guy was there dead. It had been dead since Sunday, in theory. That's
maybe since carb day.
That to me was potentially, maybe at least you think he might have made it to the race. But to me, that's a more disturbing story than some guy just stood around until people got bored and went home. There was a woman. I wish I knew I can't find it because I'm in too many 500 related groups, who posted 1040 that she was in the infield at the Speedway. She was stuck in a minivan. She posted a picture. And she couldn't find anybody to help her. She was, from what she posted, she was alone in the infield at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at nearly 11 p.m. and could not find a staff member to help her. So I mean, you want to know what the disadvantages of the place running that late into the evening. People are like, well, somebody was asking about lighting the track. Lighting the track reportedly would cost like $20 million. But I was like, think about how much you have to light up. You have to light the North 40, the Turn 3 infield, all these. You have to light up enough places that people aren't falling and tripping and suing Roger Penske because the facility wasn't safe to be open. Yeah, who cares?
If you're still listening and you jump onto our Facebook Live feed, the chat will be there after hours. After we've shut this down for the day, I dropped in the YouTube links to this fellow's 2 videos, the one from Indianapolis and the one from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the one from Lucas Oil Stadium. So you can catch both of those and judge for yourself. Final thoughts, Zach Burcham? Anything we should cover? We forgot. No. I know they had the big Jack's Donuts thing while we were gone. Some dude from Spain ate like 350 donuts at Jack's Donut holes in 8 minutes.
Yeah,
man, I've eaten 2 donuts in a day, and I felt not great for a chunk of the rest of the day. I cannot imagine your system trying to process 350 donut holes that you ate in 8 minutes. That's staggering. No, good race. Fun show last week. Nobody got right. Ericsson wrecked on the first lap, so to the McCollums. If he'd have qualified better, he would have been back there. But no, other than that, thanks for Rex for coming. It's been fun. The stories are fun. And then I wondered about if you'd signed houses, but you mentioned that you would sign a board and somebody return one to you. So I wondered, like, do you sign something or leave something behind? I always see those funny stories about people like remodel their house and they throw like a fake skeleton in the crawl space for the next person.
Done that twice.
Has anybody found them yet, or those are for later?
Haven't heard anything yet.
There's 2 treasures out there.
Just ask the neighbors to tell you when the police showed up and the coroner arrives.
We after the candidate series, we know the coroner's only going to make $80 on that trip.
Yeah.
James Webb, 350 donut holes in 8 minutes. That's $4,000 cash prize. Is it worth $4,000 to have eaten 350 donut holes?
You think of the mass of 350 donut holes. How big a mass would that be, and how would that fit into? Because he's not a big guy. I saw a picture of him. He's not a big guy.
None of those, none of them. A lot of them aren't. Like Joey Chestnut does not appear to be a big guy.
Yeah.
And I think I just saw one of those.
Second place had 317. How would you like to eat 317 donut holes and lose? Yeah. And you only get $2,000. Miserable.
A husband and wife was second and third, I think.
There was a husband and wife in it, but I don't know. I don't have enough information here to know that some in this new world, Rex, they don't always take their spouse's name. When you get famous in competitive eating, and then you find love, you don't change your name. And I just don't know. I don't know who's married to whom.
So that did remind me that Joey Chestnut did not participate in this one. I think he was supposed to a couple years ago, but he got COVID or whatever.
He didn't do it the first year. He did it the second year, and then this is the third, and he did not return.
But May 18th, he was in Knoxville, and he ate 14 pounds of bologna in 8 minutes.
Good for him.
These people, bologna's not even real food. That's like stuff they scrape up off the floor. Although I bet this company's is a premium bologna.
Christy Avery says 59.5. She's going to start drawing our Social Security right away. As soon as she can.
$24.12. You filed that early, I bet. Yeah.
That's what we need to do. Everybody needs to climb on.
Get your piece.
Yep. Get it as soon as possible. The only hope we've got is for the federal government to default and leave us alone. And it's not going to happen all at once, but if everybody gets on board, it'll happen sooner.
That'll do it. Rex, thanks for being here. Is there anything we forgot? Any stories you were supposed to tell that we didn't get to? Anything you were hoping to cover that we forgot about?
No, I could sit and talk all day about. Well, there is one thing that kind of hit home. The first job I ever did was a little old lady. My wife's heard this story so many times, but a little old lady west of Hagerstown needed new roofs, so I put a roof on for her. Well, a few years later, she died, and I did my gazintas, and she was 46 years old when I put a roof on. I've got a daughter that's turning 46 this year.
Your daughter's a 46-year-old little old lady.
Yes.
It stings.
It stings. But when I was 22, I was sure she was a little old lady.
She had to be in her 80s.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, it's our pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
If you want to come back for episode 350 for a big round number, we'll leave the door unlocked for you next week, and you can come in. We'll interview Susan if you want to. We can interview Susan, Judge Susan Bell. She does all of my marriages.
Yeah.
Everyone I've had and I plan to be a part of, she's officiated.
She's officiated.
So yeah, she did it. She did a great job with that, and you and Susan mean the world to us. So glad to have you here, even if you did interrupt the World Series in 2016 with the way you inconvenienced all of us.
It was an inconvenience. I apologize.
Thanks.
For that.
I've been waiting 8 years for my public apology for Rex having his stroke. With that, we say thank you guys so very much. We will see you next Thursday.